Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thank you very much for joining us today for this next segment of eWEEK eSpeaks. It's a series of conversations with IT thought leaders from various segments of the business. Our interviewee today is Ingo Fuchs. Ingo is calling in from Colorado today, near Boulder, I believe, and he is the chief technologist for cloud and DevOps for NetApp. NetApp is one of those feel-good companies. They're always listed in the top 5 or 10 companies, best places to work for in Silicon Valley. And Ingo is living proof of that, having been working there for 10 years. So Ingo, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And are you in a mountain cabin there? It looks like you're up in the Alps or the Rockies. Is that where
Yeah,
you're?
I'm in the Rocky Mountains outside of Boulder, as you mentioned. I'm in an old mining cabin from the mining days here, about 40 minutes drive outside of Boulder. It's
Sweet.
it's beautiful. It's just snowed yesterday. It's great. Just gets a little cold at night.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, beautiful state. One of my favorites for sure. Tell me, Ingo, what about your job and what you do on a daily basis for NetApp.
Yeah, I think the exciting thing about my job as chief technologist is that I get to talk to customers a lot and to talk to our partners, talk to industry experts, and look at the trends and what's evolving, what's changing, understanding what is happening, what is about to happen. Placing some bets very early, bets that we placed in Kubernetes, being able to influence some of the decisions that are being made both within our customer and partner base, but also within NetApp where we're going. So a lot of my job is really talking to customers, understanding where they're coming from, what trends they are seeing, what needs and challenges they have in their environments, and bringing that together with the roadmap that we're working on within the company, and then articulating the value back to our external audiences. Here's how we are addressing those needs that we understand that you have or that are coming, because a lot of times you need to develop something, over 3 or 4 years before that need really exists in our broader customer base. So to give you a specific example, when we came out with the very first Docker volume plugin back in 2015, the container topic was very avant-garde. It was very early, very experimental. A lot of universities, research institutions were working on it, but it wasn't really something that like your enterprise applications admin, your stateful applications person was worried about. It was really seen as something tangential, something experimental. Maybe it's going to be interesting, maybe not, but it wasn't really mainstream at the time. And so we invested very, very early in the space.
Yeah, you guys are ahead of the curve on all this. Are most of the customers you're working with pretty familiar with the idea of microservices and containers and the Kubernetes scheduler already, and they're needing help on it, or are they new to the game and are they coming to you just asking for some suggestions on how to go? How generally how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very broad spectrum, really, because on the one hand, we have a lot of customers now that are actually born in the cloud customers that are simply consuming our services in the cloud on the world's biggest clouds. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have customers that, because of certain legal requirements or because of their culture or because of their industry, are simply not there yet, that have not even adopted cloud yet, have certainly not thought about cloud native technologies like containers. Some customers are still going through the process of virtualizing their mission critical applications, and they may not ever choose actually to do that. So it's really a spectrum, but the vast majority of customers are somewhere in the middle, right? So you have typically a very strong, IT group that understands on-premises data center infrastructure and methodologies and processes really, really well, understand everything about data protection and data security and compliance and all of these things that are extremely important if you're in this industry, combined with very forward-looking parts of the organization that really think about, okay, we're going to start up a new business. Starting up a new business, we're not going to build a new data center for that. We're just going to run it in the cloud first. Maybe we're always going to run it in the cloud. Maybe we're going to run it halfway in the cloud and halfway on premises. Maybe we'll bring it back to on premises for a variety of reasons. And I think that spectrum is really so interesting because you never know what you're running into as you're starting these conversations and where customers are coming from. But hybrid multi-cloud is real. I mean, that is really where in my experience, 80–90% easily of the customer accounts I'm talking to, at a minimum, they have like some archive workflow into AWS S3. That's kind of where I see a lot of people start. So they have some backups maybe going to the cloud. And then the next step is the disaster recovery. You know, instead of having 2 data centers, how about we have 1 data center and we have a DR process running in the cloud? And then of course, you know, we have seen a lot of customers now really driving all of their business innovation. All of that new stuff is all happening in the cloud natively, adopting containerized environments, using serverless technologies, microservices, while still maintaining a very, very large IT footprint. So it's very interesting. It's very dynamic, how this has evolved just over the last few years. And it seems like every 6 months it's really changing dramatically.
Yeah. Boy, you have to have a pretty wide bandwidth to be able to deal with the real newbies who aren't even virtualizing their apps yet or using the cloud yet, to the big guys who've been doing this but are buying or maybe updating portion of their system or whatever. And you've got to talk the language of a lot of different people. So my hat's off to you. If I were wearing a hat, I'd tip it right now for you.
But this makes it so much fun, right? Because I learn something every day, right? I'm learning something new in every single conversations. And one of the greatest, you know, pleasures, if you will, is that you can take things that other customers have experienced, things that they have learned, things that they have found works well for them, and bring it to the customers that are still early in the journey. And so one of the um, offers that we have are professional services that really help our customers go through that process, identify what workloads would be a good fit for the cloud, what workloads would be a good fit to stay on premises for cost reason, performance reason, compliance, security, whatever it might be, and to share some of those insights, some of those experiences, really rewarding. I'm just happy that I'm able to have these conversations, and I have, in my opinion, I have probably one of the best jobs in this company. So it's fantastic.
It's nice to know, to think that, whether it's true or not. It's nice to know you have a great job.
I choose to
I,
believe it.
yeah, I have a pretty fun job too. I choose to believe I like it too. Let's go step back a little bit, Ingo, and just talk about NetApp itself, because NetApp itself started off as a, kind of a little storage company for medium to small businesses years and years ago, I remember. And it has evolved tremendously and been a real survivor in this business. And that is not easy. But it's branched out tremendously in different ways, and is really now a cloud services company in many ways. Can you give us your take on that development?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope you don't mind, but I'm actually going to say we're a thriver. I mean, if you just look at our earnings recently and all the new services and new investments and new offers that we have been able to bring to market. So I think Survivor is great, but Thriver is better. But that's just me. I'm a bit of a word nerd, I guess. So I think with the one thing that really surprises most of our existing customers and existing partners the most is how much we have changed over the last few years in terms of becoming, as you mentioned, a cloud first company where, you know, we released the first production GA version of our premier storage operating system ONTAP in the cloud in AWS back in 2014. So we have had more than 6 years of experience in operating mission critical applications in the cloud. And since then, of course, we have invested a lot, right? So we have these really strong partnerships with AWS, with Google Cloud, with Azure, with IBM Cloud. And if you're looking more specifically into enterprise applications, for example, SAP, the HANA Enterprise Cloud runs on NetApp. So it's both, you can run our services in the cloud, but we're also powering the largest clouds in the world. And this is really something that I think, you know, if you haven't paid attention to NetApp in the last 5 years or so, you'll recognize this company has really changed dramatically. The services that we have now, going all the way up the compute stack, all the way up the stack into containerized applications and driving cost optimization in the cloud, all the way up into your compute environments, not just your storage and data management environment. We're automating our customers' AI deployment. So your entire MLOps environment can be automated by our solutions in AI, driven by, you know, container infrastructures that we're supporting. So it's really a very different place. And I'm very grateful for it because I don't want to do the same thing for my entire career. So it's really exciting to work in a company that innovates so quickly and so fast.
Yeah, the ONTAP system was really one of the first cloud operating systems, wasn't it? I mean, you can look at it that
I
way.
think so. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else that really virtualized their storage operating system, put it in for production workloads, not testing, not test dev,
Right.
not QA, but for production workloads in the cloud, supporting SAN and NAS, even at the time back then, that integrates into your virtualized applications that you bring to the cloud and your cloud native applications. You can replicate, you can run disaster recovery, we did snapshots and all that kind of stuff. And so, of course, now, this was really addressing the needs of the more traditional admin, right? The traditional IT environment that said, you want to extend our on-premises infrastructure into the cloud. We want to do some failover stuff. We want to run some business applications, but we want to maintain the control of this environment. We want to turn all the knobs, in the storage OS. And what changed now is that the majority, I think, of our customers today that are in the cloud want to consume native cloud services. And so that's what we have done, a few years back, where we actually took all of that ONTAP intelligence and translated it into native cloud services across AWS, Google, and Azure that you can simply consume as a service. You don't need to know anything about storage. You need to know
Right.
nothing about protocols. You don't need to understand how snapshots and cloning and replication and failovers work. All of that just happens automatically and you simply consume. And that was a big change from building stuff that a storage admin would use to building stuff that a native born in the cloud developer would simply consume.
Right. So we have just a minute or so left, Ingo. Can you maybe describe a trend to me that you're seeing customers asking for in NetApp? Is there any one particular one that is taking up a lot of your time right now?
Yeah, I think when you started talking a little bit about containers, and I think when we look at containers, when we look at Kubernetes, this has really evolved from back in 2015, 2016, where it was just, can I just build connectivity between my container environment of choice with my storage environment of choice? And that's why we built the Docker Volume plugin, which then became Trident, which now has over 6 petabytes of storage under management under our Trident offering, which is open source, but it's fully supported across on-premises and cloud. And then it went from there to say, like, okay, well, that's great. So now it works, but I still got to do it kind of manually. I still need some expertise. Can I automate the deployment of all of my application infrastructure for my containerized apps for dev, test, and production? And that's what we call Astra, which we have solved as of last year. And then the next step is saying, okay, now I want to monitor all of this stuff without having to understand all of this stuff. And that's why we took Cloud Insights and really built what I would call like a guided tour. So you can see if something is flagged for not working quite right. You can just click through the path and you can see where the issue is coming from without having to have really extensive knowledge. And then finally, the last step was the customer said, well, that's great. So now all of my storage stuff and data management stuff is taken care of, including snapshots and cloning and dev test environments, and that's fantastic. But what about the entire application stack? And that's where we introduced Spot. And so with Spot, you can now take your entire containerized application infrastructure stack all the way up to the application, and we will automatically scale up and scale down and cost optimize to always give you the performance that you need without increasing the cost, without over provisioning resources needlessly and all of that. And I think this is really the evolution of going from basic storage services in the cloud and on premises all the way up the application stack to optimizing the entire stack without locking you into any particular distribution or any particular cloud or into your on-premises data center or anything like that. It's always open, always best of breed.
Yeah, and NetApp has been one of those vendors that's been able to play well with just about everybody, and that's not easy to say in this day and age. And thanks for that insight, Ingo. I really appreciate it. And so we've reached the end of our time here on eSpeaks. Thank you very much, Ingo Fuchs, Chief Technologist for Cloud and DevOps at NetApp from high in his perch in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fun. Good to talk to you. And so for everybody following along to the end here, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your eWeek. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.